Today, we are diving deep into one of the most sophisticated and frankly terrifying criminal enterprises on the entire planet. This is the story of an empire built not with guns, but with text messages. You know the ones. We've all gotten them. Those random, weirdly phrased messages that you just delete and forget about. But what if I told you that simple text is actually the very tip of a global criminal iceberg? One that's more organized, more corporate, and way more dangerous than you can possibly imagine. Because the numbers, well, they are absolutely staggering. We are talking about $1 trillion industry here, all built on pure deception. To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire economy of many countries just gone. Stolen from millions of ordinary people in just 1 year. So the big question is, how on earth did we get here?
To really get this, we have to go back to the beginning, because this whole thing didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, this was a strategic, almost corporate-level decision to pivot from one massive industry to a whole new one.
See, the criminals behind this whole empire were actually facing a crisis. Their main business, these huge, flashy casinos for Chinese high rollers all across Southeast Asia, was basically on the brink of collapse. So here they are, with all this infrastructure, all this cash, all these connections, but their customers have vanished. They needed a new product, and they needed it fast.
And this all happened in a few key stages. First, a wave of Chinese investment built the perfect infrastructure: roads, internet, and massive buildings. Then, a huge anti-corruption crackdown in China pushed the casino bosses and all their money into these new zones. But the final nail in the coffin? The pandemic. It completely shut down international travel. So, faced with all these empty casinos, these syndicates didn't just give up. They repurposed everything for their brand new venture: industrial-scale cyber fraud.
And Southeast Asia, unfortunately, provided the perfect conditions for this to explode. You had brand new, high-speed internet, but it was often in these remote border regions with really weak governments and, let's be honest, a lot of corruption. These special economic zones, which operate with fewer rules to attract business, became the perfect legal loophole. You mix all that with political instability, and you've created the perfect storm for a massive criminal enterprise to just flourish in the shadows. But look, this wasn't just a financial pivot. It unleashed a human rights catastrophe. And the scale of it is it's incredibly difficult to wrap your head around.
The United Nations figures that hundreds of thousands of people, many of them young, educated, and good with technology, were tricked by fake job ads and trafficked into these scam compounds. They literally became prisoners, forced to become soldiers in this criminal army, scamming people all over the world, often under the threat of extreme violence.
And the conditions inside these places are just horrific. This quote from the UN really says it all. We're talking about a level of cruelty that's hard to even imagine. This isn't just a crime wave. It's modern slavery, and it's powering this whole digital scam empire.
You know, the really chilling part is how sophisticated it is. These are not a bunch of guys in a basement. They are run like Fortune 500 companies. They have HR departments, IT support, strict performance metrics, the whole 9 yards. They just swap out employee handbooks for scam scripts and corporate campuses for fortified barbed wire compounds. It's a twisted mirror image of a legitimate business.
And their specialty is one of the most psychologically brutal scams ever invented: pig butchering. It's an unbelievably cruel long con. A scammer will spend weeks, even months, building a deep, personal, often romantic relationship with a victim. They fatten the pig with trust and affection before convincing them to invest their entire life savings into a fake crypto site. And then, poof, they're gone. The financial loss is one thing, but the emotional devastation is just absolute. Okay, so the sheer scale of this threat forced the world to wake up and respond in a completely new way. It became obvious that the old ways of fighting international crime were just not gonna cut it. So you see this wave of activity. Suddenly, governments across the region are scrambling to update their laws. Thailand passes an emergency decree to force banks to share data and freeze accounts instantly. Singapore gives its police new powers to do the same. Basically, all these countries looked at their rulebooks, designed for physical crime, and realized they were completely obsolete.
They needed new weapons for a new kind of war.
But they also figured out something absolutely crucial. New laws in your own country don't mean a thing when the criminals are in another country and the money is in a third. This problem is totally borderless, so the only way to fight it was to be borderless too.
And that led to these unprecedented alliances, like Operation Frontier Plus. Now, this isn't about agencies sending formal letters and waiting weeks for a reply. No, this is about anti-scam centers in 10 different countries sharing intelligence live, in real time. It means mobilizing thousands of officers from 7 different police forces to strike these networks everywhere, all at once.
And the results? Well, they show you just how massive this fight is. Take a look. In the cases they investigated during just 1 month-long operation, the victim losses were almost $300 million. So while they're making arrests and getting some money back, it just shows you the insane amount of damage these syndicates can do in a very, very short amount of time.
So, this brings us to where we are now. And make no mistake, this fight is far from over. This is a constantly evolving battlefield, where both sides are adapting and learning at lightning speed.
I think the biggest challenge right now is just how incredibly agile these criminal groups are. You shut down one of their compounds in Cambodia, and almost overnight they pop up in a more lawless part of Myanmar. You figure out how to block one of their scams, and they invent a new one using AI and deepfakes. They are relentless innovators, for evil, but innovators nonetheless. And that leaves us with the critical question for the future. On one hand, this crisis has forced the world to create a revolutionary new model for fighting global crime. But on the other hand, the criminals are just as revolutionary. The real test isn't just about winning a single battle. It's about whether our global institutions can learn to adapt and innovate even faster than the criminal networks they're desperately trying to stop.